Hey guys, it's Sam here, and welcome back to another week of new releases. This week was totally insane. There was a lot of music that came out this week, and there were a couple releases from some pretty well-known bands as well. And I'm talking about Naglfar, Winterfilleth, Forgotten Tomb, Sojourner, and a whole bunch of others, a couple of which I'm going to be talking about today in my video. So all of this means basically that I had a shit ton of music to go through this week. And I ended up making a list of like 10 albums, and I was like, that's way too long, and I trimmed it down to maybe have about 6 albums to talk about today, and then I'll probably even still be adding a couple links in the description at the end of the video, just because there were some albums that I realized after I finalized the list that like, oh shit, I should have either made that higher up, or I should have included this one, or whatever. So basically what I'm telling you is that like I'm not really satisfied with the way that this list turned out, just because there was so much good music, and I feel like there was way too much to even include in this video. So if there's anything that I missed or that I didn't include, it's probably not because I didn't get to it or anything like that, because I was listening to stuff obsessively this week. It's just that there's so much good shit that came out that it was honestly just so much to talk about, and I couldn't fit it all in. And there's also a couple things that I'm deliberately excluding because I was not really a fan. And if you've heard those things too, then you probably know which ones I'm talking about. Alright, so I'm just gonna jump right in here, and I'm gonna try to speed through these today because I don't want to end up with a super long video. My number 6 on the list today is Cosmic World Mother by And Oceans, which is awesome because we finally have a new And Oceans album. We haven't had one since 2002, it's been a really long time, so it's really great to hear them coming back after all of these years, and honestly, the best thing about it is that this is a fantastic album. I'm not just including this because it's another And Oceans album, I'm including this because honestly, like, this is some of their best work to date. I feel like they went through this teenager phase for a while of kind of like trying to figure out their identity. Like, did they want to go more in the electronic direction, or did they want to go more in the symphonic direction, which was like most of their earlier stuff. And now it feels like they've come back and they've kind of found a way to reconcile and be like, okay, maybe we don't have to choose which side of ourselves we want to be. They're just a lot more confident in the music they're making, and it sounds like they've really relaxed into their sound here, and that's really honestly great to hear. And Scum over at That Kingdom Scum, whose blog I've been reading for years now, actually mentioned that this is everything Carrick Angren should have been, and more, and I totally agree with that sentiment. He's got great taste, by the way. If you guys haven't heard of his blog, you should go check it out. I'll include a link to that in the description. My number 5 today is Tides of Fire by With the End in Mind, and if you guys are familiar with the Cascadian black metal scene at all, then you guys are probably familiar with these guys. They are one of the pillars of the scene over there, I would say. And if you're one of those people that loves like super atmospheric, nature-inspired, like Wolves in the Throne Room type of stuff, then Cascadian black metal is what you're all about. And these guys are like one of my favorite examples of that. They're up there with Falls of Rauros, honestly. So they've got a new album out, and it's on Avant-Garde Music, and this one is about the apocalypse. And honestly, it's really dark. I find it darker than their last release. And it's also pretty fitting thematically, because it's kind of about not like the physical destruction of the world, but it's more about just kind of taking a pause in the middle of all this and like trying to reconcile what's gone on and what's gone wrong with the world. And so it's pretty therapeutic to listen to. Like I said, it's a little darker than their last release, which was 2016's Unraveling Arising, both in terms of the theme and in terms of the music. But if you were a fan of their last album, then you'll definitely like this one as well. They haven't changed that much. So number 4 on my list is also a release coming out on Avant-Garde Music, and that's Truemurti by Drought. So these guys are an Italian band who had their first EP a couple of years back. I think it was also in 2016, and these guys play black metal about spiritual awakening and tantra, and it's kind of just a deep, thought-provoking kind of journey through spiritual awakening. It's hypnotic, but it's not boringly so. Like, I would hesitate to describe this as repetitive in any way. That's not what I mean by hypnotic. It's more like it brings you into this trance, but it's musically interesting the whole way through. There's a lot of unexpected twists and turns all the way throughout this album, and they've actually divided it up into 3 sections, and each section is supposed to correspond with a stage in this spiritual journey. First, it's awareness, then transformation, and then elevation. So if you're paying attention and keeping those themes in mind throughout the time you're listening to this album, I think that's how you're going to get the most out of it. Number 3 on the list today is some Australian raw black metal. It's demo number 2 by Celestial Conjuration. And this is some pretty interesting stuff. I noticed on their Bandcamp page they had the tag Astral Depression, and I think it's a really interesting theme. I mean, like, if you look at their logo, if you look at their artwork, it's obviously space themed and space influenced, and you can really hear that in their music. Like, they've got a lot of really interesting synths going on throughout this really distant but not suffocatingly produced raw black metal. They've also got the whole demo interlaced with dungeon synth inspired passages, which is really nice. It's distant and it's kind of like a reminder of how small you are in the universe, but at the same time, it's depressing and kind of downcast, but also it's soothing. So it's kind of like this weird mashup of all these different things coming at you from all these different places. And it's not depressing in like an edgy kind of DSBM type of way. It's actually like super well done. It fits in really naturally with what they have going on. And this is only their second demo. Their first came out in late 2019. All in all, it seems like these guys have a pretty great thing going on, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more from them, hopefully in the next few years. Number 2 is Abyssus Abyssum Invocat by Vexev. This is another Italian band, and we've got some more raw black metal for you on this one. This is their first release, and like a lot of raw black metal bands, there's not a lot of information to be found on these guys, but their music is, like I said, raw black metal, but it's also incorporating organs and also a little bit of noise here and there, kind of like sprinkled throughout the entire album, which is a nice touch. Their music is not chaotic, it's not misanthropic in any kind of way. It sounds really orderly and organized, and it sounds like every note on the album is exactly where it's intended to go, and that makes it sound kind of ritualistic, which makes sense, because the imagery on this album is totally satanic. It brings up all this imagery of satanic rituals and black masses. And overall, like I said, it's really organized and it's really well put together, but not in a way that makes it seem overdone or predictable in any way. It's pretty short, it's about 30 minutes or so, but I haven't heard anyone talking about this yet, and it's pretty good, so check it out. Alright, we're down to number 1, and that's Bloom y Mal by Topi Toot. These guys are an atmospheric black metal band from Quebec, from specifically Quebec City, playing some pretty cold and raw and aggressive stuff about freezing Quebecois winters and nature and frostbite and all of those wonderful things. But it's also an album with more than one side to it. If you're only paying attention to those aspects, that cold, freezing type of album that's kind of typical for bands from that scene and from that style, you're gonna miss out. Because on one side, this is kind of a fast-paced and, like I said, aggressive album that's got these pointy, needle-sharp melodies kind of floating over the whole thing, but it's sitting on top of some, like, pretty killer and steadily evolving riffs that are never boring. Like, underneath the cold, it's beefy, it's plucky, it's filthy in the best way, it's totally full of character, and it's in your face like a really good stout. It's not very often that I find myself really drawn to the bass on an album like this. But like I said, this is an album with more than one side, so if you're only paying attention to the things that you notice on the surface, you're really gonna miss out on just how unique and full of character this album really is. And like I said, the bass really kicks it over the top. Like, this is really well done, it's really well put together, and it's from Quebec, which, as you guys all know by now, is bonus points as far as I'm concerned. Links for everything that I've talked about are in the description, and as well I'm gonna throw in some links to a couple of other things in there that I really enjoyed this week, but I didn't really have the chance to talk about in this video. So I hope I've managed to show you guys a couple new things this week that you may have missed amidst like the whole flood we had of like new stuff to check out. And remember, if you listen to something that you found on these videos, I'm always interested to know what you thought about it. Like, send me a message on Instagram if you want, again, 4SA4GR if you're not already following me, or pop your opinion in the comments here. I'm always happy to discuss music, and let's be honest, what else do I have going on? Not a lot. So let's talk about some music, let's go. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next week.